Could a single treaty signed in Israel really signal the countdown to the end times? Why are top scientists baffled, governments suddenly coordinating, and ancient prophecies lining up with today's events? Something is happening, something no one is telling you, and it's only just begun. Last night, Israel entered into a peace framework set to last 7 years. On the surface, it sounds like diplomacy, like the world has finally found a moment of calm in a region that has been volatile for decades. But look closer, and you'll see it's not just a treaty. It's a blueprint for something much bigger. Scholars have debated Daniel 9:27 for centuries. It speaks of a covenant with many that lasts 7. And today, that ancient timeline appears to be taking shape in front of our eyes. Here's where it starts to get complicated. This isn't just about Israel making deals with its neighbors. The treaty introduces something called the Board of Peace, a new international authority, with members from multiple nations, including global leaders who seem eager for positions of power. The documents indicate that this board may operate above existing governments, with authority that could influence regional decisions. Why would a peace agreement need a new governing system? Why now? And more importantly, who really stands to gain from this? You might think maybe it's just bureaucracy, a way to ensure compliance. But consider the pattern. Similar treaties in the past, Camp David, Oslo, the Abraham Accords, never required this kind of centralized board. Something different is happening this time. Something unprecedented. And here's the first twist. In the middle of this 7-year covenant, prophecy suggests the agreement will break. Someone, called the Prince who is to come, will turn against Israel, even after helping set the stage for peace. That moment, the texts suggest, triggers the next stage of control and global upheaval. And if that sounds like ancient allegory, consider the technologies already emerging today. Digital IDs, biometric databases, cashless economies, systems that, once fully implemented, could allow unprecedented oversight of every individual on Earth. But we're not just talking theory. Right now, governments from the UK to Australia are rolling out programs that tie personal freedoms to digital identity. The pieces are moving, quietly, and most people aren't noticing. And here's the question that should make every citizen pay attention. Once these systems are in place, what will happen when control is no longer optional? What's the end game they aren't telling you yet? The pieces of the puzzle are becoming clearer, and technology is the key. Digital identification systems, biometric databases, and cashless payment infrastructures aren't just conveniences. They are the first steps toward the kind of control that biblical prophecy warned about centuries ago. In the United Kingdom, for example, authorities are already moving toward mandatory digital IDs tied directly to one's right to work. On the surface, it sounds harmless: security, fraud prevention, immigration control. But consider this. Once a system like this exists, once everyone's fingerprints, facial scans, bank information, and medical records are in one place, what prevents it from being used to control behavior? Look to China, and the picture becomes chillingly concrete. Cameras track every movement, and payments, travel, even social privileges are linked to personal scores. One wrong step, one dissenting post, and access can vanish instantly. And now countries in Europe and even North America are exploring similar digital ID systems, often under the guise of modernization or security. The infrastructure is being laid quietly, piece by piece. But it's not just about digital IDs. Microchip implants are already being tested in Sweden, Australia, and Thailand. Tiny chips in the hand that let people pay for purchases with a simple wave. Imagine combining that with a digital ID linked to your bank account, healthcare, and government records. The system could monitor, track, and ultimately control nearly every aspect of daily life. And the prophecy connection is striking. Revelation 13 describes a mark on the right hand or forehead that governs buying and selling. For centuries, readers assumed this was symbolic. But the technology exists today. Chips, biometric scanning, cashless systems, they're not just possible. They are already being implemented. And governments are laying the groundwork now, before anyone notices how quickly these systems could expand. Even neural interfaces, like those being developed by companies such as Neuralink, show how close we are to unprecedented control. At first, the focus is medical, restoring movement to paralyzed patients or aiding cognitive function. But a chip that reads brain activity could, in theory, be linked to a global system of digital identity and finance. That is a reality straight out of prophecy. Here's the part most people miss. This isn't a hypothetical future. Countries are quietly coordinating, testing, and rolling out these technologies. Vietnam froze 86 million bank accounts recently, only unlocking them when citizens complied with biometric verification. Canada froze accounts of protest participants, and central bank digital currencies are being explored in almost every developed nation. The infrastructure is being built, piece by piece, toward a system where access to money and survival itself depends on compliance. Here's where the story takes a sharp turn. The 7-year treaty Israel just signed isn't just diplomacy. It could be the starting point for the infrastructure we've been describing. Daniel chapter 9:27 speaks of a covenant confirmed with many for 7, and the details align in ways that make historians and theologians sit up and take notice. Multiple nations, Israel at the center, a fixed timeline. The pattern is unmistakable. And it's not just a symbolic alignment. The treaty establishes something called the Board of Peace, which includes global leaders, advisors, and officials from multiple nations. According to the documents, this board has authority to make decisions that could impact governance, security, and even economic policies in the region. Past treaties never required this kind of supranational structure. Why now? What is being set up behind the scenes while the world focuses on headlines? The prophecy adds another layer. Halfway through this 7-year covenant, the agreement is predicted to break. The same figure who helped establish peace, referred to in Scripture as the Prince, will turn against Israel. That act, scholars suggest, is what sets the stage for global systems of control, the very kind we are seeing signs of today. Digital IDs, biometric verification, cashless systems, they could all be integrated into one framework at the right moment. And while governments roll out these systems quietly, historical and political context matters. Peace treaties in the Middle East rarely last 7 years. Camp David, Oslo, even the Abraham Accords were fragile at best. But this time, the agreement comes with a timeline and mechanisms that could make it enforceable. And the implications extend far beyond Israel and Palestine. If the Board of Peace has authority over regional governance and global cooperation, it could act as the central hub linking technology, finance, and international policy. Here's a chilling detail. The treaty also addresses disputed land, including areas near the Temple Mount, the site of the long-awaited Third Temple in prophecy. For nearly 2,000 years, this location has been contested, but the treaty appears to provide the framework needed to clear political and logistical hurdles. Could this be the step that sets the stage for one of the most controversial and consequential construction projects in history? And while the world debates the politics, the technology, the legal implications, almost no one is connecting the dots to the prophecy. That gap between public awareness and unfolding reality is exactly what allows this system to grow quietly. But there's more. While the treaty establishes this framework, the mechanisms for enforcing digital compliance are already in motion globally. Countries are testing them, expanding them, and linking them to finance and identity. The next stage is coming faster than most realize. Imagine a world where access to your money depends not on how hard you work or what you own, but on whether a system allows it. That's not science fiction. It's already happening in parts of the world. Vietnam recently froze 86 million bank accounts overnight. Citizens could only regain access by submitting biometric verification. Canada, during protests, froze the accounts of ordinary citizens, small donations, and even volunteers who had no direct involvement. The precedent is set. Financial access can be controlled in an instant. Now, consider a digital ID system tied to every aspect of your life: bank accounts, healthcare, property, even daily purchases. Once linked to biometric data or microchip technology, these systems create the infrastructure for unprecedented control. Without compliance, you can't buy, sell, or even function in society. Prophecy warned of this kind of mechanism in Revelation 13, describing a mark that governs commerce worldwide. And today, technology exists that could make it a reality. Central bank digital currencies are moving forward rapidly in multiple countries. Cash is disappearing, replaced by fully digital systems. Transactions are traceable, programmable, and, potentially, revocable by a central authority. Imagine a world where your ability to buy food, pay bills, or receive your Social Security check depends on a single approval from a system you cannot opt out of. The implications for personal freedom are staggering. And the connection to Israel's treaty is subtle but critical. The Board of Peace, with authority over regional governance and international cooperation, could serve as the enforcement hub for compliance. It's not just prophecy, it's a blueprint. Political authority, technology, and finance converging in a way that makes control over daily life seamless and nearly unavoidable. But this isn't limited to the Middle East. Countries across Europe, Australia, and North America are testing parts of the same system. Biometric verification, digital IDs, and microchip payments are being normalized quietly. The infrastructure exists. The laws are being written, and public awareness is minimal. Most people assume these are security measures or technological upgrades, never imagining how quickly compliance could become mandatory. Here's the question nobody is asking. Once all these systems are linked, and access to essential services depends on full compliance, what happens if someone refuses? What happens if you try to opt out? The biblical prophecy doesn't leave this vague. It describes a system where refusal comes at a cost. Exclusion from society, commerce, and survival itself. And right now, governments and corporations are quietly assembling the pieces of that system. And while the world debates politics, economics, and ethics, the clock is ticking. Every treaty signed, every technology implemented, every digital law passed could be another step toward this reality, while most people remain unaware. The treaty isn't just political or technological, it's deeply tied to prophecy. Daniel 9:27 predicts a 7-year covenant with many, and halfway through, the agreement breaks. This is where the figure described as the prince who is to come enters the narrative, a global leader whose actions trigger a chain of events that prophecy links to the end times. His identity remains unknown, but the mechanism is clear. Peace established, then shattered, setting the stage for unprecedented global authority. Another crucial piece is the Third Temple. For nearly 2,000 years, the Temple Mount has been a contested site, the location of the first two temples destroyed by Babylon and Rome. Prophecy states that a third temple must be rebuilt as part of the timeline. The treaty's framework, particularly the Board of Peace, could provide the political and logistical structure necessary to make that possible. Agreements, permissions, and international oversight, once unimaginable, are quietly being laid in place. Consider the implications. Rebuilding the temple isn't just a religious act. It's a global signal that the 7-year period has begun. And during this time, technology and governance are being synchronized to exert unprecedented control over populations. Digital IDs, biometric systems, cashless economies, all align with biblical descriptions of a system where participation in society is conditional. Every detail, from treaties to technology, seems to converge toward a single, chilling possibility. And yet, the world is largely unaware. News cycles focus on elections, scandals, and ordinary conflicts, while a carefully constructed framework is being implemented behind the headlines. This is the irony. A prophecy written thousands of years ago, describing events that sounded impossible, is unfolding quietly in real time. Governments, technology companies, and global organizations are moving forward, piece by piece, while most citizens continue with their daily routines. Here's the part that should unsettle anyone paying attention. The prince isn't expected to act alone. The framework created by the treaty, the Board of Peace, and international compliance mechanisms ensures that power will be distributed and enforced across borders. When the midpoint of the 7 years arrives and the covenant breaks, the control systems already in place could suddenly be turned to enforce a new global order. And just when you think you understand the scope, consider this. The technology exists today to monitor, track, and influence nearly every aspect of life. Digital IDs, biometric verification, and neural interfaces could be linked directly to finance, commerce, and government authorization. The prophecy doesn't just describe a spiritual reality, it foreshadows a system that could be realized technologically in our lifetime. But there's one more twist coming. The treaty, the board, and the technologies all hint at a connection that even scientists can't explain. And that connection, when revealed, will make everything that's happening suddenly undeniable. While most of the world is focused on ordinary politics, there's an underlying pattern that even top scientists struggle to explain. Events are aligning across countries, technologies, and international governance in ways that seem impossible, yet undeniable. Israel's treaty, the Board of Peace, Midpoint, and emerging digital systems are moving in sync with each other, as though a single invisible hand is guiding them. Consider this. Countries from the UK to Australia, Canada, and parts of Europe are implementing digital ID programs, biometric verification, and cashless transaction systems almost simultaneously. At first glance, they're framed as security measures, modernization efforts, or financial efficiency. But the coordination is striking. No one has orchestrated this globally before at such scale, yet the pieces are coming together at the same time the 7-year treaty is being established. Scientists and technology experts are baffled. How could such rapid alignment happen naturally? How could geopolitical events, financial systems, and cutting-edge technologies converge precisely when a prophetic timeline appears to start? It defies conventional explanation, but for those watching prophecy closely, the patterns are eerily familiar. The covenant, the temple, and the systems of control all point toward the fulfillment of what's been described for thousands of years. And the stakes are higher than ever. The Board of Peace, with authority over regional and potentially global decisions, could act as the enforcement hub for these technologies. Digital IDs, linked to finance, healthcare, and commerce, could suddenly determine who can participate in society. One wrong step, one act of non-compliance, and access could vanish. It's the same mechanism described in Revelation 13. No one can buy or sell without the mark, and the infrastructure is already being assembled quietly. But the full picture goes even further. The third temple, once rebuilt, signals a specific stage in the prophecy. When the midpoint of the 7-year covenant arrives, the agreement is broken, and the systems in place could be flipped to enforce control worldwide. The convergence of political treaties, technology, and finance is not theoretical. It's already happening. The pieces are set, the mechanisms exist, and the stage is being prepared for something that has not been seen in modern history. And here's the final, unsettling thought. Even atheist scientists who approach the world from purely empirical perspectives are watching these alignments and struggling to explain them. The patterns, the timing, the unprecedented global coordination, it defies probability. And yet, the evidence is all around us. The treaty, the technology, the board, the temple, they are all moving toward one inevitable conclusion. But just when you think you understand the scope, there's one last twist. The connection between these events and the global systems of control is closer than anyone realizes, and it's about to be revealed in a way that will leave the world stunned. Everything you've seen so far, the treaty, the Board of Peace, the digital systems, the Third Temple, points toward one undeniable reality. A chain of events is unfolding that aligns with ancient prophecy in ways that even scientists cannot explain. And yet, the world barely notices. Governments are quietly rolling out infrastructure that could enforce global compliance. Digital IDs, biometric verification, and cashless systems are being normalized, and the treaty provides the perfect geopolitical framework to support them. The stage is set, the mechanisms are ready, and the timeline is running. But what nobody can predict is who will step forward at the midpoint of the 7-year covenant, the prince who is to come, and how swiftly the control systems could be activated. Here's the unnerving part. Every tool required to enforce absolute control exists today. The technology is in place, the international coordination is underway, and public awareness is minimal. One simple action or inaction could trigger changes that would ripple across the globe, and most people would never see it coming. And yet, just when it seems inevitable, there's a variable that nobody can fully account for. Will the global system succeed in enforcing compliance? Will the Board of Peace wield the power it seems destined to claim? Or is there something else, something still hidden, that could change the outcome entirely? The pieces are on the board. The clock is ticking, and the world is watching without realizing it. Every treaty signed, every law passed, every digital system implemented is a move toward an outcome that has been foretold for millennia. And while ordinary citizens go about their lives, history is quietly accelerating toward a moment that could redefine freedom, identity, and the very structure of society. And here's the final thought to leave you unsettled. The next step, the revelation of the connection between Israel's treaty, global governance, and the technology systems, is closer than you think. What happens when these forces converge fully? Will humanity realize what has been set in motion, or will it already be too late? The answer is coming, and when it arrives, the world will never look the same.